Hi there, welcome to a series of videos called English for Emerson. On this channel we learn some basic English reading and writing. You need something to write with and something to write on, hopefully paper with lines on it going side to side. I got sloppy lines on this board. Don't pay attention to that, please. We've been working on folk sayings. I'll put that up here. You know, I've done a lot of these folk sayings now, and I'm just... the more I look at these things, I'm thinking, gosh, these people who lived in the old times were smart. They were really smart. They knew a lot of stuff. And we'd all be better off if we listened to the wisdom of our ancestors instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. Where it's like we're, in our lives, we seem to repeat some of the same mistakes that our ancestors already warned us about. It's important to listen to the old folks. They really knew a lot. Some of their sayings are kind of contradictory. Like they might say, where there's a will, there's a way. But on the other hand, they might say, don't overplay your hand. It's almost like that's life though. It's like we're walking on a tightrope that's strung between two buildings. We can't lean too far one way. We can't lean too far to the other. We kind of got to balance it. So that's what these statements, these sayings from the old times do. They give us balance in our life. They kind of give us some guideposts to maintain our balance. That's wisdom right there. Wisdom is balance in a lot of ways. We got a good one today. Here we go. We're starting with a capital Y. And we're making the word, what is that? I hope you know that it's you. That's right, it is. Straight line down for a lowercase h, we're going to say have, got. This is a simple saying here. Really simple. Too many. You have got too many. We're just going to stop here for a moment and talk about this as you write. Notice that I got a silent E in have. It's not havey. It's have. You have. Got. Well, at least that word makes some sense. The letter G can make a G or a J. It can also do other sounds. In this case, it makes a G, as in got. You have got. And then we got too many. Well, you'll notice that this two has two O's in it. There's three different kinds of twos in English. There's the number two. That's TWO. There's saying something like go to bed. Go to bed. That's telling somebody to do something, essentially. Or somebody telling you to do something. It's a common word in English that's all over the place. We use that one. That's the most common to. To be or not to be. And then we got this one, the TOO. This one is only used when you got too much, too little, too high, too low, too shallow, too deep. It's either too much or too little of something. Do you follow me? It's indicating how much of something there is or how high it is. It's a measurement. And I guess you could say the number 2 is a measurement, but that's just the number 2 only. This is a measurement 2. I hope it makes sense. So you got to pick from 3 different 2s. They all sound the same. but they are spelled differently and they mean different things. This is A2 indicating you're measuring. So in this case, we got too many. Many is man with a Y on the end of it. It's not Manny. Kind of changes. It changes that A to an S sound. Many. This Y makes the E sound at the end of this word. We know that Y sound at the end of the word can do a heck of a lot of different things. It makes I's, O's, O's, E's, A's. In this case, it's an E. You have got too many irons in the fire. You have got too many irons in the fire. Irons. 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 Isn't that a weird sounding word? Iron. That's a silent O. Look at that. Irons. I don't hear an O in it at all. It's not irons. It's not irons. It's irons. That's a silent O. Gosh darn silent letters in English. Irons. What's an iron? Well, it's something that's made out of iron. The element iron. Metal. You could say the same thing by saying you got too many metals in the fire. The old folks worked with iron. They didn't have back then a lot of the kinds of metal that we have today. The old folks back in the folk times, their primary metal that they used was iron. The more sophisticated stuff that we have today, here's a pot made out of stainless steel. It's kind of shiny. I don't even know that they had stainless steel until relatively recently, because that's made out of different stuff. It's got nickel in it and probably molybdenum or something like that. It's got all kinds of different elements in it. The metal that they had to work with was iron. Their pots and pans were made out of iron, not stainless steel, okay? You got too many irons in the fire. We know in and the. We're good with that. Fire, silent E at the end. It makes the I sound like itself. It's not fiery, it's fire. You have got too many irons in the fire. What in the heck does this mean? Oh, what in the world were they talking about? Well, they're talking about a thing called a forge. I'll put that up here, a forge. In the old days, you got to realize something. Every single little town had a forge. And a lot of times they would have a forge on every farm because they had to make stuff like horseshoes. They had to repair things like wagon wheels because the outside of the wagon wheel was iron. Otherwise, it would wear through the wood as they went over the rocks. The outside of the wagon wheel was iron. They had to be able to do repairs on all this kind of stuff, like, making new horseshoes, repairing broken wagon wheels. Also, they had to be able to make nails. You couldn't just, get on your car and go to the hardware store and buy a box of nails. You might have to actually make them out of a hunk of metal. And they had little tools inside the forge. They could get the little piece of metal and then pound it out, sharpen up one end, and bang, make a head on the other and make a nail. A lot of the nails that they used to make their houses and stuff were homemade. Or they were made at a forge in the local town. Well, every man back in the day knew how to run a forge and at least be able to heat up a piece of metal and bend it and make a little repair on a tool if something got broken, okay? What you had to do to run a forge is that you would get a coal, maybe wood, probably coal, and you would pump air into it to get the fire going super hot, and you get the fire going so hot that it would make the metal white hot. It'd get red and then orange and then yellow, and then it'd get just like white. The metal would be so hot. And you could bend it into different shapes and make whatever you wanted out of it. Well, the thing about it, if you got a fire going and you put, let's say you're working on a horseshoe. You put that horseshoe in the fire, it gets white hot, and you bang it into shape. You even pound with a special tool. You would pound through the horseshoe holes so you could nail it onto the horse's foot. The horseshoe had to have holes through it, like 6, 7, 8 holes. If you put a bunch of horseshoes into the fire, well, it would be too many. The fire wouldn't be able to get all of those horseshoes hot. And therefore, you wouldn't be able to get it hot enough to be able to poke a hole through it, to put the nail through. You had to work on one at a time. The fire wouldn't be able to get hot enough to heat up a great big bunch of horseshoes. Do you follow me? They recognized that when you're working on something in the forge, you had to do one thing at a time, or maybe 2 things at a time, but not too many pieces of iron in the fire. The fire wouldn't be able to get them all hot. They had branding irons too. That's how they kept track of their cattle and their horses that they had out on the open range. They would take a hot piece of iron, put it in the fire, and then they'd hold the cow down, and they'd on its butt or on its side, they would brand and burn the hair. It would scar the skin, and you could see, for the rest of its life, you could see the brand of the scar that would be left on the side of that cow. Really a horrible thing to do, but that's how they kept ownership of their cows and horses and stuff, was by branding them with an iron that was hot. Listen, you're going to hear this from time to time, and it's great wisdom from the old times. Trust me, I did this when I was young, when I was in my 20s. I got too many irons in the fire. It was terrible. I got a job as a teacher, a high school teacher, someplace down in Oregon. There was not really a good, what you'd call, curriculum, or there was not a good plan for what to teach. There was not a good plan. So I had to basically invent a whole new set of lessons for these students. I didn't have that much time because I had to teach all day, and then I had to go home at night and try to figure out what I was going to do the next day, because there was no plan. It was not easy. And then I was stupid enough, and it was not smart. I took on the job in addition to that of being a basketball coach. So not only did I have all that work to do to get the plan ready for the students, but every single day after school for like 4 months, I had to go to the practice with the boys in the gym for a couple of hours and do the practice, and a lot of times games, which were at night. So by the time sometimes I got home at the end of the night from these basketball games or basketball practice, I still had to go to work on my computer and come up with lessons to do the next day for the students, which was my primary job. Plus, I was trying to, have this farm, keep animals, sheep and horses and stuff. It was a disaster because I had too many irons in the fire. You think that you can take all these things on when you're young and do everything and do it all well. Well, you can for a while, but you also have to sleep and eat. I did not take care of myself. Finally, I burned out. I burned out after a few years of this. It took me years to recover from the burnout of doing this to myself, of putting too many irons in the fire. I would caution anybody listening to this lesson, Emerson, I hope you're listening to me. Don't put too many irons in the fire. Trust me, you do not want to burn yourself out, because it takes a long time to recover from a burnout when you do too much and then you're just absolutely done. Like your whole body shuts down and you can't do anything. That's not a good thing. We got to be careful with about life, that we don't take on too much for too long and avoid burning ourselves out by putting too many irons in the fire, because then the fire finally burns out. It can't keep up with all the things you keep trying to heat up. I hope it makes sense. And that's all I got to say on English for Emerson. You have got too many irons in the fire. You better be careful. You might burn yourself out. Great wisdom from the old folks. Okay. That's all for English for Emerson. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.